Imagine this. It's late at night, and you've found a comfortable place to rest. The lights are dim, the world is quiet, and now it's just you and the sounds of a story. A story born from history, whispered through folklore, and alive in the echoes of memory. Welcome to History for Sleepyheads. If you're new here, I'm so glad you've joined us. If you've been part of our little nighttime history journeys before, welcome back, friend. Tonight we'll drift into a legend, one wrapped in mystery and perhaps just enough eeriness to stir your imagination, without ever disturbing your rest. Tonight's story is about the Crying Stone. A towering, solitary rock formation rising from the green hills of western Kenya, near Kakamega. At first glance, just a stone. But at night, when the air is hushed and damp, water seeps down its surface as though it were shedding tears. For centuries, locals and travelers alike have stood before it, whispering stories. Does it cry for joy, for sorrow, for something else? Tonight, we're going to wander through history, through folklore, and through the quiet landscapes that have framed this legend. Nothing urgent. Nothing stressful. Just a slow and soothing walk through time. And as we begin, I invite you, if you're listening comfortably and enjoying this journey already, to gently press like on this video. And if you'd like more immersive bedtime history, hit subscribe. It helps more than you know, and it makes sure you'll never run out of stories to drift away with. So, make yourself comfortable. Lay back. Maybe take a few slow breaths. And let's step softly, together, into the misty land of legend. Imagine waking just before dawn in the highlands of western Kenya. There is a faint drizzle in the air, and everything smells of wet grass and fertile earth. Around you, the countryside is gently rolling, green, dotted with tall acacia trees, their silhouettes bending slightly in the night wind. Somewhere far off, you might hear the muffled call of an owl, or the distant drip of water swollen from the rain. You begin to walk along a narrow dirt path, velvet soft beneath your feet from the rain. With every step, the mist seems to pull back, revealing what lies ahead, a shape, tall and smooth, rising impossibly high. At first it might look like a rock, and then, more than a rock. A column. A sentinel. As you approach, you begin to hear it. The sound of water trickling. Not a stream, not quite rain, but a steady seep, like tears sliding down cheeks. It slides along the surface of this giant stone, shimmering in the faint starlight. Droplets form and then fall, like silent sobs. This, you realize, is the Crying Stone. The locals call it Ikongo Murwi. Some tell you it's a cursed warrior, turned into rock and left to weep eternally. Others, a grieving mother mourning her lost children. And others still, a blessing, tears that never cease, a reminder of abundance, of life-giving water. The stone itself is staggering in height, more than 40 meters high, freestanding and alone, like a natural tower of limestone against the horizon. Its base is wide, tapering upward into a slender column that looks as if it could topple at any moment, though it has stood through centuries of storms. And though you know it's only geology, some part of you wonders, quietly, could a stone really carry sorrow? The air is cooler here, damp against your skin. You run a hand along the wet surface of the stone, and feel its roughness against your fingers, slick with water. You can taste the faint metallic tang of minerals in the droplets. Legends like this, you realize, live at the crossroads of explanation and imagination. Humans see tears, and we feel. Stones cry, and suddenly stories bloom. And so tonight, our journey will not only trace the ancient whispers of the Crying Stone of Kenya, but also wander through a wider world, other crying rocks, statues said to weep, myths of stones imbued with mourning. We will weave together history, science, myth, and that tender human longing to hear stories in silence. Before we wander deeper into the lore, I'll ask you a little question. Where are you listening from tonight? Drop it in the comments below. Our Sleepyheads community is scattered all around the world, and it's always comforting to see where these stories travel, like a constellation of sleepy listeners under the same night sky. Now, the path is clear. The stone stands before us. Let's step closer to its tears and listen to its story. The stone revealed. You step a little closer now, the sound of trickling water more distinct. As the mist parts gently around you, the outline of the crying stone becomes sharper. It's enormous. Rising like a natural pillar, a tower that has stood longer than any house, church, or temple you've ever seen. The surface is pocked in places by weather, streaked with lines of mineral drips, and covered in patches of emerald moss that thrive in the forgiving damp. Stand still a moment. Tilt your head back. Let your eyes follow its sheer face upwards, higher and higher, until the top vanishes into the pale morning sky. If you tried to place both arms around it, even linking with companions, it wouldn't be enough. Something about that height, even without a single carving or mark, whispers of monumentality, of meaning. Listen closely. The water is not quite a stream, not rainfall, it is constant. Thin rivulets slip down, shimmering whenever gray sunlight breaks through the clouds. You touch a droplet on your finger, feel the coolness seep into your skin. If you close your eyes for a moment, you could almost imagine the sound as something more than water, perhaps the quiet sob of a spirit trapped within, perhaps a lonely whisper echoing from the unseen places of the world. The locals will tell you this stone doesn't merely weep. It performs. At times, after heavy rains, the flow becomes stronger, cascading down its sides, like a mighty lament. And other times, during dry seasons, it thins to a mere misting, a delicate sheen, as though the stone's tears have slowed to an exhausted trickle. Stones across civilizations have been carved, lifted, and built into monuments. But here is a natural monument, one that seems to carve a story of its own. You realize how different this feels compared to human-built ruins. A castle crumbles, a temple erodes. But this stone, untouched by hand, has cried long before humans came, and will cry long after. As you circle the base, you sense something alive around it. Not in movement, but in reverence. You picture the countless feet that must have come here, children scampering around its shadow, families bringing gifts, elders telling tales around small fires as dusk falls and the tears shimmer red in the setting sun. You can almost hear their stories carried on the air, like voices overlapping faintly, never gone but never fully present. This is a warrior punished. This is a mother lost. This is life, eternal, water from stone. And yet, as majestic as it seems, the stone holds no aggression, no menace. Its weeping is soft, even soothing. You find yourself calm, lulled by the repetitive sound, like rain on a roof, like a gentle stream. In its sorrow, there's something strangely comforting. Pause here a moment with me. Take a slow inhale, then let it go. Imagine you're seated with your back against this vast stone, damp but cool, breathing with the rhythm of its tears. If you're still with us, enjoying this gentle imagining, I'd love to know, what do you hear around you when you play this story? Do you fall asleep to rain, to silence, to the hum of a city? Share it in the comments. It's always a joy to see the tapestry of sounds that cradle us across the world. And as you settle a little deeper into this space, the story unfolds further, because stones do not only hold shape. They hold myth. The wind picks up softly, tugging at the grass around your feet. A drop of water falls from a high ridge above, splashing against your hand. And in that moment you recall what the locals say, that these are not random streams, but tears full of meaning. Tears, after all, are a language. When humans cry, we express words that go beyond words. So what does it mean when a stone itself weeps? Let's step closer into the stories, the whispers of legend, because the crying stone is not alone in its sorrow. All across the world, there are tales of stones that cry, each carrying grief or power, each blending the line between geology and mythology. Legends of tears. You rest a little closer to the base of the crying stone, listening as the droplets rhythmically fall. Almost like a heartbeat. Almost like a lullaby. And your thoughts drift. If this stone can cry, surely it must be remembering something. Stones, after all, are older than us. They have been here since before our stories began. And across the world, when people saw tears in stone, or in statues, or in the earth itself, they made sense of it the only way humans know how, through stories. A Kenyan mother's sorrow. The local Luya and other communities whisper that the crying stone could be a grieving mother. Long ago, they say, a woman lost her children, taken by famine, or by war, or by the merciless passing of time. Too overcome with sorrow to walk further, she sank to the earth. Her body hardened into stone, her tears refusing to stop. You can almost picture her face silently turned to the sky, the body weeping eternally, her grief etched into limestone. And when villagers looked upon the tears, they didn't see only sadness. They saw compassion, too. For just as tears water the cheeks, the stone's tears water the land. Life from grief. Abundance from sorrow. The warrior turned to rock. Another legend tells of a proud warrior who defied the spirits, or perhaps his own kin. His punishment was to be transformed into stone, his pride hardened, his rage silenced. But the tears reveal that beneath even a warrior's defiance, there is regret, there is pain. The trickling water, then, are his unending sobs, mourning what was lost to arrogance. You picture the stone differently with this story? Less a pillar of comfort, more a monument of caution. A reminder to all who pass that pride may lift you tall, but sorrow will hollow you from within. Legends beyond Kenya. But the crying stone is not alone. In Greece, old villagers tell of statues of saints that weep salty tears when calamity approaches, droplets forming on cheeks of marble, said to warn the faithful of times ahead. In Ireland, wet-weathered stones are often called crying rocks, especially those near sacred wells. Some Catholics claim the Virgin Mary's statues weep, not only in stone, but in homes across the world, always signaling some deep grief of humanity itself. In Japan, stone Jizo statues, guardians of children, are often decorated with red bibs and little hats. Locals say that when mist and rain coat their faces, the droplets resemble tears, reminders of their duty to shepherd lost children's souls. Spiritual sorrow, transcribed in rock. And across Native American traditions, there are crying hills, sacred stones whose damp streaks carry both mourning and protection. Tears, they say, are bridges between worlds. Close your eyes here for just a moment. Let yourself imagine a map, stretched across oceans, deserts, continents, all dotted with places said to weep. Ancient Greece. The soft hills of Ireland. The temples of Japan. The plains of Kenya. Each tear, though separated by distance, feels connected. Perhaps humanity itself sees sorrow in stone because we need to. We see tears to remind ourselves that grief is universal. And here, sitting beneath one particular column, you realize the crying stone shares not just a local myth, but a global chorus of tears and stone. If you're still with me, you might let me know in the comments, which legend resonates most with you. The grieving mother? The punished warrior? Or maybe you've heard your own local tale of a stone that weeps. Our little global community shares these stories like threads, weaving a quilt from every corner. Echoes of ancient spirits. The mist thickens again, and the sky deepens to a pale silver. Dawn is approaching. Imagine the world centuries ago, before any written explanations, before maps, before scholars came with pens and notebooks. Imagine standing where we are now, torch in hand, listening to elders share the story by firelight. The crying stone wasn't just a curiosity, it was a spirit, a place of energy. To the Liya people, stones, rivers, forests often carried living force. Standing near it was not neutral. You were in the company of something alive, something aware. Shamans and spiritual leaders are said to have come to the stone for guidance. They would place offerings, small gourds of beer, honey, or even woven cloths, asking the stone spirit to intercede, to bring rain or peace. When tears flowed heavily, they believed it was a sign the spirits were listening. When the flow slowed, perhaps the spirits were turning away. You can almost picture it, drumming in the distance, figures painted with ochre, dancing slowly in the flicker of flame, calling to the ancestors through the stone. The sob of water becoming part of the music, rhythmic, eternal. Similar practices echo around the world. In ancient Mesopotamia, holy stones were believed to channel gods, Baetels, they called them, living pillars that could hear offerings. In South America, the Inca revered sacred huacas, often stones, as sites where gods and ancestors lived. Water upon them meant blessing. So perhaps the crying stone's tears aren't punishment at all. Perhaps they are a voice, a gentle attempt by the land itself to speak back to the people. Not in thunder or fire, but in soft streams of tears. Imagine being told, as a child, that the stone is watching you. That if you lie, if you betray, if you wound the land, the stone sees and it weeps. Perhaps even weeps for you. Wouldn't that bind you more closely to the land? Wouldn't you tread more carefully, knowing even stone has sorrow? The dawn edges closer now. Birds stir faintly in the trees around, their small songs weaving into the steady weep of the stone. You stand in awe not just of this great column of limestone, but of the centuries of faith placed upon it. How many generations stood where you do? How many whispered prayers into the morning mist? How many souls pressed the damp surface, let tears from their own eyes mingle with the stones? The crying stone has seen all of these, and still, silently it weeps. If you're still awake with me, resting easy, you might give this video a like and subscribe gently. It really does mean the world. And maybe type in the comments, what part of the world are you in, listening tonight? It's always comforting to see our sleepy community glowing from Nairobi to New York, from Dublin to Delhi. Now, let's walk further into time. Beyond local ritual. Beyond myth. Toward the footsteps of travelers, outsiders, who looked upon the stone with their own eyes and scratched its mystery into their journals. Ahead lies the sound of bells, the ringing of traders' caravans, the murmur of explorers, the scratching quills of early colonial chroniclers. Our next step takes us into their gaze, into the records left behind by wanderers who encountered the crying stone and tried to describe its tears to the world. Travelers' accounts. The world turns. Seasons pass. Soon, centuries roll onward. Imagine now, you are standing not as a villager, but as a traveler. It is the 18th century, and caravans of traders are crossing through East Africa. You might picture them, camels laden with salt, cloth, beads, or ivory, moving slowly across hot plains, their bells jangling gently in the heavy air. Some came inland from the Swahili coast, bringing whispers of faraway oceans. Others were Arab traders, scribes in tow, noting down the peculiar sights of their journey. Europeans, too, in time, recorded details, explorers hungrily cataloging Africa's marvels for readers across seas. Among the details that caught their eyes, a singular stone, rising like a tower, draped in endless tears. When you read their accounts, the tone often wavers between awe and suspicion. To an explorer already weary from months in rugged landscapes, stumbling upon the crying stone must have felt like encountering a monument built by nature herself. Monumental. Baffling. One 19th century missionary journal describes it. A column of rock, freestanding, with waters upon its face, wet as though in mourning. The locals say it weeps for ages past. It is tall, and yet solitary, without kin. You can almost hear the scratch of quills against parchment, ink drying in the humid air, the writer pausing to look up once more at the dripping streaks across the stone. For locals, there was no puzzle. The stone cried because it held spirit. But to visiting scientists, geologists, missionaries, these tears demanded an explanation. Some muttered that it must be rain seepage. Others speculated about underground springs. All wrote with a kind of restless uncertainty, for, after all, how often did one encounter a sobbing stone? And as their writings crossed oceans, bound in books and letters, readers in London, Lisbon, and beyond shivered faintly while sipping tea, picturing a faraway stone that cried in the African night. Imagine it now, a Victorian home, candlelight flickering, a woman in shawl turning pages that whisper of East African marvels. Her husband, perhaps, by fire, raising an eyebrow. And she closes her eyes and imagines, yes, a stone that cries. The words carry distance, atmosphere, exoticism. For her, that night, the crying stone was not across the world, but right there, dripping in her imagination. Legends travel not only by word of mouth, but by ink and sail, by caravan and trade. And so, the crying stone stretched far beyond its Kenyan hills, to live in the pages of curious travelers. And yet, their accounts never truly captured what the locals felt. To describe is not to feel. They defined the crying stone as anomaly. But for those living by it, the stone was not anomalous at all, it was integral, alive, storied. So as we shift forward again, allow yourself to recenter not in the gaze of the visitor, but in the older and deeper vision, the human sense that water, in all its forms, is sacred. Water as sacred. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine drops falling, plip, plop, the steady rhythm of water meeting earth. To us, perhaps sleepy and modern, it sounds soothing. But to ancient peoples, this sound was survival. Water meant life. Water meant blessing. Throughout cultures, wherever water emerged mysteriously, dripping from a rock, trickling from a spring, it was revered. In deserts, water was miracle, oases considered gifts from gods. In Celtic Europe, holy wells were tended carefully, adorned with ribbons and prayers. In India, rivers like the Ganges became mothers, cleansers of sin. In Africa, water spirits like Mami Wata watched from streams. So when water runs from stone, when a barren surface itself begins to cry life, how could it not be sacred? The crying stone's tears, then, become so much more than geology. They are liquid prayers, falling ceaselessly. Think of Moses in the Old Testament, striking a rock in the wilderness so that water poured forth to sustain his people. The image burns into the collective mind. Water from stone is salvation. It is divine intervention. In African cosmology too, tears bring fertility. Rains mark the difference between feast and famine. A weeping stone, then, could be imagined as a guardian who never forgets to bless the soil. Farmers might glance upward, gauging the stone's tears like a clock of seasons. Heavy flow, spirits are generous. Dry trickles, perhaps drought lurks. And there is the emotional undercurrent. Tears, in human terms, are both grief and release. Think of the way you feel after a cry. The heaviness lifting, the chest unclenching. Perhaps the stone's unending weep kept the earth itself balanced. Science may tell us it is only groundwater, percolating through porous layers, seeping outward as gravity demands. But the heart says otherwise. The heart says, here is a rock alive, a rock with endless wells of emotion, gifting humanity both tale and liquid. Sit with that a moment. Hear the droplets in your mind. Imagine the tears pooling in small bowls, rippling when insects land. Imagine women collecting water, children splashing in shallow puddles, elders shaking their heads with reverence. Imagine the smell of damp grass heavy in the air, saturating lungs with a greenness you rarely taste in cities. If you're enjoying this journey, take a gentle moment, tap the like button, let the story trickle a little further in YouTube's vast landscape. And if you're new, subscribing ensures you'll always have another nighttime story waiting. Now, let's wander again. From the sacred symbolism of water to the world of explanations, scientific voices stepping in with calm reasoning to explain what tears truly are. But as we'll soon discover, science and story do not always cancel one another. They sometimes cradle each other, two truths trickling down the same stone. The stone still weeps, but now the sky is brighter. Rays of sunlight land like golden brushstrokes across its wet face. You watch as droplets sparkle, gems forming, falling, gone. And a voice inside you wonders, could there be something more ordinary here? A natural mechanism, a simple flow of rainwater that only seems extraordinary? Let's step gently into explanation, history, and geology. Let's hear how science sees the crying stone. Science meets story. The sun rises gently now, spilling light through shredded clouds, soaking the landscape in hushed gold. The stone glistens brighter than ever, its surface alive with streaks of water. And you stop to wonder, if the stone is weeping, how? Over the centuries, scientists, geographers, and geologists have stepped forward with their explanations. They carry not only curiosity, but notebooks, measuring sticks, samples chipped away discreetly in pouches. The crying stone is limestone, they say, a porous, thirsty rock. Every rain that falls upon the hills seeps deep inside, trickling through tiny passageways, finding fissures invisible to the eye. The rock becomes a sponge, and sometimes that sponge leaks. The slow, unending tears are nothing more, they conclude, than the stone's quiet release of water held inside. It is reasonable. It is rational. It is even elegant. Scientists point out similar phenomena worldwide, cliffs that drip even on dry days, caves with stalactites eternally damp, porous rock faces that turn weeping when rains swell underground aquifers. But listen. Does this explanation diminish the wonder? Or could it do the opposite? Could it deepen awe? Think of it, the earth itself, sculpted from ancient seas, storing invisible water within, then shedding it drop by drop. A system so intricate, so invisible, that even explanation becomes its own kind of enchantment. And in truth, the stone's tears are often seasonal. In heavy rains the weeping grows generous, in dry years it thins. Logical. Predictable. Yet ask yourself, does regularity make it less meaningful? Or do we perhaps honor the ordinary precisely because it touches the extraordinary? Imagine some Victorian scientist with spectacles fogged in mist, scribbling notes in Latin. It is not grief, it is percolation. And still, as night falls, even he sits by candlelight, listening to its steady fall, softened by sound, lulled by rhythm. Logic does not guard the heart from calm. This is the peculiar overlap of science and myth. Both are true in their own frame. For the villagers, it weeps for children or warriors. For the geologist, it seeps because limestone crumbles under storm. Yet sit quietly long enough at its base, and both dissolve into something more intimate, a stone that drips like time, patient, endless, singing a lullaby to earth. So perhaps the true magic is this, that geology and grief meet here, not as rivals, but as companions. And as you sit with this thought, let the sound wash over you. Inhale. Exhale. The droplets fall like seconds of eternity, a constant beating heart. If you've drifted relaxed with this thought, consider gently tapping the like button. A tiny click, like a droplet's fall, and it trickles far further than you imagine. Colonial curiosity. Now shift again. Imagine the world of the 19th and early 20th centuries, when colonial rule reshaped Africa in a heavy, complicated silence. Missionaries, administrators, scholars, they too arrived at the Crying Stone. For some, it was a marvel worth cataloging in the pursuit of exotic wonders. For others, it became a symbol to fold into lessons of faith. How strange, they thought, that a stone should appear to cry, and yet how neatly it could represent penance, or grief, or baptism. In their sermons, missionaries sometimes described it as though it were mourning the sins of mankind, almost like a natural prophet standing in the wilderness. The locals, of course, already had centuries of stories etched into it. But in the colonial era, those voices were often pressed aside in preference for European narratives, printed in pamphlets, described in travelogues, even advertised in tourist brochures as though sorrow itself had become a spectacle. You can imagine the small caravans of administrators riding in from town, hats tilted low against the sun, standing in awkward groups beneath the colossal column. They take photographs, black and white snapshots where the weeping face appears frozen, gray and solemn. The caption might read, "Crying Stone Kakamega," an object of native superstition and interest. What a contrast! Where elders saw a living guardian, the colonial eye often reduced it to curiosity. What once was spirit became superstition. What once was sacred became sideshow. And yet, the stone endured. Silent. Unbothered. Its tears did not stop to explain themselves. Its weeping did not care for categories. If you close your eyes, you might imagine conversations at that time, a local elder, softly telling a missionary, "This is the sorrow of our ancestors." And the missionary, head shaking, replying only, "It is rainwater, nothing more." Two truths passing like ships in mist, never colliding, never fully reaching each other. This chapter of history is more sobering. It reminds us how easily wonder can be handled bluntly, packaged and controlled. But the Crying Stone never lost itself. Through droughts, through political changes, through decades of shifting gazes, it stood tall, it wept, it whispered to the land in silence. And in some gentle, quiet way, perhaps it even wept for the misunderstanding too, for the gap between seeing and knowing, between explanation and reverence. So as you sit here in its shadow, think of how many languages have named it. How many journals have described it. How many prayers have reached it, whispered in different words, kneeling in the same damp earth. The colonial chapter has passed, yet the Crying Stone remains. Stronger, perhaps, for carrying both layers, mythic and recorded. Local and foreign. Spiritual and geological. Always weeping. Always reminding. If you're with me still, drifting in this thought, maybe take a second to write in the comments. Do you lean more toward the myth, or toward the science? Or do you, like the stone, let both trickle together? The world has moved on again. Cars replace caravans. Cameras grow digital. Visitors now arrive with smartphones, with picnic baskets, with guidebooks that list the Crying Stone as a must-see marvel. Some still kneel with reverence, others simply snap a selfie. But the stone does not choose, it weeps just the same. Let's step softly now into the present, into how modern pilgrims, tourists, and wanderers stand where you stand, hearing the same endless song of tears. Modern pilgrims and tourists. Time folds forward. Imagine now, it is not the 19th century but today. The hills around Kakamega are alive with movement. The roads, though bumpy, welcome buses that roll in carrying curious visitors, students, tourists, pilgrims. Some wear hiking boots, others sandals. Some carry guidebooks, while others simply follow locals with quiet anticipation. The crying stone stands exactly as it always has, unchanged, eternal, while everything else around it hums with modern life. The distant fields buzz with motorcycles, a radio's music drifts faintly through the trees, and yet when you draw close to the stone, all that noise feels softened, like background static fading into something older, steadier, the trickling sound. For some visitors, it is simply a striking photo opportunity. They position themselves at its base, tilt their heads back in wonder, and snap selfies with water streaks glimmering over the stone's face. Later, those images will land on Instagram, tagged #cryingstone, little square echoes of a monument that has stood before cameras were ever dreamed of. For others, the journey is more sacred. Pilgrims still come with prayers tucked in their hearts. Some touch the damp surface and let water bless their foreheads. Some speak softly, asking the stone for intercession, for rain that year, for health, for peace in families. Older women might hum traditional songs, weaving their voices into the stone's sob. Even weddings sometimes photograph here. Couples stand in the stone's presence, holding hands in its shadow, as though the everlasting weeping might bless their marriages too with endurance and humility. Tour guides tell playful myths, blending fact and legend. Children laugh as droplets splash their cheeks. And in the midst of it all, the crying stone does what it always has, it weeps. Neither flattered by cameras nor burdened by prayers. It is constancy in a changing world. It strikes you, then, that perhaps this is what makes the stone unique. Everything else around it shifts. Colonial control surged and ebbed, political borders redrew themselves, buses and satellites and smartphones came. But the stone's tears remain equal, steady, impartial. And in the evenings, when tourists have gone and locals have returned home, when the fields turn blue with dusk, the crying stone still breathes in silence. Alone, yet never lonely. Its tears falling only for those who will listen. If you're resting easily here, let me ask gently, at what time are you listening? Are you tucked into bed at night, or perhaps drifting during the day? Leave a note in the comments. It always amazes me how some listen at midnight, others in the early dawn, all cradled by the same story. The symbol of endurance. Sit quietly now. Imagine yourself leaning back once again against the stone's damp base. The morning has grown into full day, the sky brighter, the mist burned away by light. Birds wheel lazily above. The stone towers eternally. And you think about endurance. For centuries, the crying stone has faced storm and sun alike. It has withstood the suspicion of colonial riders, the reverence of shamans, the laughter of tourists. It has been defined as grief, as miracle, as geology. And through all of it, it did the simplest of things, it kept on weeping. Is that not, perhaps, the secret to endurance? Not the showy strength of resisting, nor the arrogance of towering alone, but the humble persistence of simply continuing, drop by drop, day by day. The stone has cried through generations of wars and peace, of famine and feast, of festivals and funerals. Its tears remind us that sorrow is not a weakness but a natural presence. To weep is not to break, it is to endure. And perhaps that's why the local legends spoke of mothers and warriors. Because deep down, humans know, nothing lasts forever except that quiet continuity, that rhythm, that gentle recommencement of the same song, again and again. So the crying stone becomes more than a curiosity. More than a myth. It becomes symbol, of grief, of compassion, of unending time. And of how even sadness can sustain life, nourishing soil, quenching thirst, softening spirits. Pause here with me. Picture one drop falling. Then another. Infinite rhythm, tapping softly against centuries. Hear it within you. And let it weave with your breathing, calm and steady, If you've made it with me to this point, perhaps let yourself relax fully. You might already be on the edge of sleep, and that's perfectly fine. If your eyes are heavy, let the story become dreamlike, slipping softly from your grasp. If you are still awake and enjoying this journey, we'd be grateful if you join the Sleepyheads community with a simple subscribe. And maybe at the end, peek at another video to drift into other times and legends. The day wanes. Shadows stretch. You rise once more, brushing dew and moss from your clothes. When you look back, the crying stone still towers, impassive, eternal, water glimmering in the last of the light. And you know, tomorrow, it will be the same. Next year, the same. Long after us all, the same. It will weep endlessly. A reminder that grief and grace often flow from the same source. A reminder to endure gently, simply. So you turn, and you walk back into the softening dusk. The sound of trickling grows faint, folds into silence. And finally into sleep. Good night, traveler. And thank you for journeying with us tonight.